Well, a very good morning. Welcome to UBC TV. Good morning, Uganda Extra. Today, my name is Uganda Semakola Ziksoka. Welcome on another very good day, the 24th of January in this year, 2022. Now, this is week 3 of the reopening of schools. Students are back in schools. And by this time, if you've not gone back to school, then you cannot tell us or give us every other reason. Because we now are very sure that those who went back to school, the learners, are now adopting again, having stayed away from school for close to 2 years. That's why it is. Now, the country is also mourning the gallant son of Uganda, the governor of the Bank of Uganda, Professor Emmanuel Mutevire, who died yesterday in Nairobi. And of course, we wait to know from the Central Bank of Uganda all the necessary preparations of how Professor Mutevire will be laid to rest. But eulogies, of course, and tributes coming in from every angle. So many of us who related, who knew, who worked with, or who were friends with Professor Emmanuel Mutevire continue to mourn him, and of course the entire nation. Now, from all that, with me in studios is Mr. Solomon Muita, and he is the spokesperson of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. You are welcome again, Mr. Muita.
Glad to be here, Mr. Jagenda.
How did you receive the news of the governor of the Bank of Uganda yesterday?
Well, it's tragic. He's someone we've known for 2 decades. He's been there. He's held it together. Uganda went through all those tough times of the economic recession. He held it together. And it's sad to learn that he's gone. So it's going to be a big gap for the country, you know, to find his replacement. Of course, we will definitely find. Yeah, but it is sad to lose someone with his experience, with his knowledge of that sector. Okay. Yeah, we'll miss him dearly. Okay.
Yeah, we'll miss him. And of course, lots of things will be said about Professor Mutevire. So much will come through. The newsroom will profile him, and of course different persons, those who have been worked with him or who have known him for all the time that he's actually been there. 73 years is just such a long time for somebody to have lived, and of course to do their best and to offer their best to the country. Well, from all that, Muita here, let's get to the issues. We continue to have a crisis of fuel in this country, and we should now just talk about the regulation of the fuel prices in this country. You go to many petrol stations now with a flat figure of, I think, 5,000, because I think that's the ceiling that the government put up. Some are slightly lower than 5,000, and some are slightly higher than 5,000. But the problem is still with us. Let's talk about the regulation of the prices. How are you managing, and what is the latest?
Well, like we've discussed before, the fuel sector is liberalized in this country. Still forces of demand and supply. Is a free market economy. However, as before, the government has been working with these businessmen. We move together. We license them. We actually support the sector, because when we license, we also monitor to ensure that smugglers don't encroach on the business. We ensure that no dumping, no adulteration, all these bad practices. When we clean the market, we are setting it for the legal businessmen to enjoy, to reap from the business community. So as we do that, we discuss with the licensed players to ensure that they also don't exploit or they don't overmilk their customers. Because it's a thing of scratch my back, I scratch yours. When we clean the market, there was a time when we had so many illegal stations. You know those roadside stations, they don't have a license, you don't know what sort of fuel.
How do they even begin? Because we see many of these, especially in places as we're driving to our homes, and anyway, then we just find a pump somewhere written on, I think, kerosene and everything, diesel, what, and just like that.
People are so daring out there. They just come, you know, they just set them up. You don't know sometimes how they, you know, before you know, you just see a pump popping up. And there is a long process to set up a palm or to set up a fuel station. You have to have physical plans approved by the local or urban authorities in that area. You need to get an environmental impact assessment
report.
Yeah, from NEMA. From there, you have to come and apply for a construction permit from the ministry, my ministry. Then you come back and after construction, you get a completion, completion permit or license. After that, then you apply for an operation license. So all those steps. But then these unscrupulous people...
How long does that take? How long does the entire process take from when I want to do it?
It would depend on the investor. Because when you apply and you have what it takes, you should get. Because I believe the longest processes should be the NEMA and the person approving the physical plans. Because if you can get that approved, if you get a NEMA certificate quickly, and you get the physical planning permit, permits so quickly, our side will let you, and then it will come down to how much money you have to put up the structures as they appear on the plan. Well, it will take maybe 6 months to put up a proper station. Where properly inspected, everything evaluated, all the safety measures taken and approved. And then it will be operational. So when we go through all these processes and we help these licensed people to clean up the market, because we are making sure that you don't face unnecessary competition, unfair competition. For you to go through all those stages and then there's someone who hasn't done anything, and then you're competing with them for a customer. It's very bad. But if we help you clean, we remove those people, then you should also be able to flow with us. If we advise that the prices shouldn't go beyond this, then we expect you to also, to comply, really.
Talking about the unfair competition, some of us have the privilege of moving around the country, back and forth. You go, you see what happens here and there, and stuff like that. To move around the country to see these things. But when you talk about the unfair competition, you'll notice that as you're driving, whether in the city here or up country in the countryside, you will notice that petrol station X has this particular price, and it's high by about maybe 200 shillings. Then, in a space of just about 2, 3, 4 kilometers, you find another petrol station, which is maybe 250 or 300 shillings lower than the other price. And you keep wondering. And it's a liberalized economy, yes, that we know. Do you as a ministry walk around and say, if I am selling a fuel at maybe 4,000, I'm looking at those days, I'm selling it at 4,000, and there's another petrol station selling it at 4,500. Did you come in to actually ask me why I'm either selling that highly or this lowly?
Jagenda, the price per se is actually that price disparity is not the problem. Because the way this business runs is that the public benefits from what we call a price war between these stations. We've licensed 1,300. So the price war really is to the advantage of the consumer. For as long as all the players don't exceed, don't over target to get abnormal profits. So in our discussion with these oil marketing companies, we are going to say you're going to enjoy a profit within this margin. So behind the scenes, we will discuss, they will know the cutoff point behind the scenes. So as they go about their businesses, we are, within the margin, if someone wants to take all the margin, or another one will decide to take a bit of it, that is okay. So it is okay for one to sell at 4,000, another one sells at 4,500. But if someone comes up and says 6,000 now, that's the problem. The 6,000 one will move in. But the one within the margin that we the allowable profit, really.
Okay.
That is okay. Because when they compete like that, you know, of course, someone will say, if I take a profit of 100 shillings per litre, I'll probably get more borders, more taxis, more, you know, more customers, ideally. But there are these big companies that will say, our price is this, maybe 4.4 or 4.5, and we've done enough, you know, marketing campaigns, and we'll get our customers. And they also get, for as long as none of them goes beyond what we think is an allowable profit.
Okay. Now that brings us to another thing here of the adulteration of the fuel itself. Because what happens is Moita oils will actually try to maybe decampaign Semakula oils by saying, I sell at 4,500 because mine is not adulterated. Semakula sells at 4,000 because he mixes some other stuff in that. And there is that scare. Now, to the public who, of course, do not know, we also tend to go with these simple things here to say, I rather go for what is a little expensive to serve my car, my engine, my everything, as opposed to going for this which is cheap because it's also adulterated. How about that?
Okay. It is important for the public to know that all the fuel that comes to Uganda comes from the same source. Same supplier, same fuel, same quality.
Different petrol stations here, but
all
from
them,
the same source.
All of them. If it's petrol, they'll buy the same petrol.
From the same source.
Same source, same supplier. Same. There's what you pick at Shell or what you pick at Rubis, or I've seen some names that that I even had to memorize, but all the fuel is the same. Now, I know that the big guys, what we call the big boys, the big boys will add in some chemicals to improve, and those are, we know them as a ministry. They've declared, we have them in our labs, and we test to confirm that they've not added anything extra. So they add in some, they put in some additives to improve. That's why you hear of V-Power and so on. It's just to improve the quality for the sake of their customers. And probably that's why sometimes you find their products a little pricey, but not exceeding our ceiling, as I've told you already. Now, the other players ordinarily sell the fuel as they buy it from the supplier. Now, we have a very robust monitoring system. We have a fuel marking team at the ministry. We have a lab at the ministry, and we have mobile labs. So routinely, we keep doing spot checks on different stations to confirm that what they are, they are not adulterating. They are selling the right fuel, right quality, and so on. They've not added anything. Or they've not even bought what they are not supposed to buy. Because there are trucks that come through Uganda, they are going to Sudan or Congo. That is not adulterated fuel, but it's not supposed to be on this market. It's also from the same source.
Transiting through.
Yeah. So that fuel is not supposed to stop here. The reason it's not supposed to stop here is because it can destabilize the price. It can cause unfair competition and so on. So if we mark our fuel at the border, the one coming to Uganda. So if we find your station with fuel which is not marked, we close it. If you find your station with fuel, because it could be smuggled, it could be dumped. So we take you on, we close it. We close you. Or if we find there are people who there were a few stations that had started the habit of probably adding a bit of paraffin into
the petrol.
Into petrol or paraffin into the diesel, because paraffin is cheaper and the other one is more expensive. So when you mix the two, you get more volumes and probably make more money because you're selling it expensively. But those ones, the crackdown has been really serious on them, and I can assure you it is less than 1%.
Of all the players that we have on market?
Yeah, the ones that have been doing that. 99.5% of the fuel in Uganda is clean. We get monthly reports, we get teams inspections that conduct every month. 99.5% of the fuel you find at the pumps in Uganda is clean, is genuine, is not adulterated. 0.5%
is where you find those things.
Those small things you find on the roadside. Those ones that are not even licensed. And we continue appealing to the public that if you have any reason to think that someone is adulterating their fuel, it could be one of those big stations. Should you have a feeling that it might be unclean, please notify us and our teams will be there. In a very short way, they will be there because we have so many mobile labs.
Okay.
So we just drive to the station, ask for a sample, test it quickly, and we will be able to tell in a very short time that this one is not clean and we'll close it.
Would you encourage all these other players to also have that additive, that chemical that the big boys use to have V-Power and Exilium and all the things? Would you advise them, or it's a business it's a business technique that these ones decide to take on? So
well, it's like telling someone in Chikubo to display their goods or their products in their space there. The same way Carrefour or ShopRite or whatever displays. Because ShopRite is going to have spacious corridors, a bit of AC, customer care, you know, people in uniform, computers and so on. And the person in Chikubo doesn't have that luxury. They have the same product probably, but the way, the presentation, you know, the way they put it to the customer is what differs. So the big boys probably have access to
those other chemicals.
So the chemicals, probably they come at a cost. The same way Carrefour is going to be investing in paying customer care staff, putting them in uniform, buying computers, using, you know, swipe machines and so on. The Chikubo person will say, no, I can't even.
Come buy your rice and go.
Yeah, you want rice, take rice. Okay. You want sugar, take sugar. So, yeah, the bigger companies, they are all over the world. They have presence in many countries. Probably they have access. Maybe they also make they are making some of these additives themselves.
Okay.
So the other person might want to venture but find it a bit expensive, or maybe they don't even know how to do it properly. Okay. Yeah.
The crisis seems to be biting us harder. Even when prices seem to have come a little lower, you drive around the city and many of the petrol stations actually have a standard fee over 5,000. But unfortunately, you get to these petrol stations and they tell you we have empty tanks. What is the status of our fuel reserves? Because our solace now should be in our reserves. We now should be getting to our reservoirs to see what we get. What is the status of our reserves as a country currently?
Before we get into the reserves, it is important for the people to know what the status of the fuel coming in is. There is a team, a joint task force, which was set up between Uganda and Kenya, and they committed to clear the borders by Wednesday. So on Wednesday, they are going to move.
Wednesday after tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
They will move and make sure that no truck is still stuck there. That was a commitment made, that if the congestion does not clear by tomorrow, the teams will be there purposely to make sure that everyone passes. Because the route is still slow because of that. You heard that the Prime Minister also directed that the way bridge closer to the border should be suspended.
At Malaba Obusia?
Yeah, should be suspended for now, so that the trucks can move a little faster. So the fuel has been coming, but we've had a challenge also of the trucks going back to pick more fuel. Because As they pass through, when they go back, they find congestion and they can't cross quickly. That's why they were even directed to another route, Luakaka, to go through. It's called Ruahaha.
Ruahaha, then Mbale.
Yes,
Mbale,
yes.
Mbale side.
Which might be longer for some trucks, because I know that you know, companies like Shell, you find that they prefer to use Busia border. Maybe it's closer to where they pick their fuel. So if you send them through another route, it's going to take more time also for them to pick the product and come back. But it's going to stabilize a bit slowly. Probably by the end of the month, we expect all the stations, the tanks at the individual stations, to have enough fuel.
What happens, Nugumita, when we get this fuel from maybe Eldoret or wherever in Kenya, Nakuru, and etc., etc.? Do we carry this fuel to the reserves, or we carry them to my petrol station, to the tanks? We need to know. How does the fuel get into the reserves? Before you even talk about the status of the reserves, where do we get the fuel to the reserves?
Okay. The fuel, because the consumers are not at the reserves, so you first replenish the tanks at the individual stations. The tanks can have a maximum of about 260 liters. But
60,000, 260,000.
Yeah, 260,000 liters. Yeah, so on average, 180,000 liters per station. You need about 4 to 5 trucks to fill a station, one station. So if you got one, probably people are going to buy it in one day and it's out. So you need another one to come, and if they still find it dry, they will buy it in another. What
comes in is what goes out.
Yeah, so it's going to take a bit of time, for probably 2 weeks, for the trucks to go come, and you know, for as the stations build stock. If a station has more than one truck, fine, it's delivering. But so after filling the individual station, you know, then they will go and start filling the storage. Because you start at the station, that's where the market is.
Who fills the storage? Who puts into the reserves?
Now the storage is filled. The bigger players are conditioned to have storage that can take them for not less than 10 days. The bigger players.
In a crisis.
Whichever time.
Okay.
You should build your stock. For instance, companies like Shell, Total, they have probably 100 stations each. So the condition is you have fuel at the station, but also in the reserve to service those stations for not less than 10
Actually,
days.
each of them have more stations. Across the country, I think they constitute about 30% of all the petrol stations in this country.
So each one will first fill the stations, and they will take fuel to their tanks, storage tanks, wherever they are, and build that stock. And we think that building of stock in the storage will probably start in February. And it might take another 2 weeks also to fill the tank, 2 or 3 weeks.
So what happens now currently is what comes in is what we buy out, is what we spend.
What is coming in is what we are buying. That's what we are putting in our cars. So the public is also trying to be a bit, thinking a bit differently. So we've got information that people are now filling their tanks, so they don't want to land into a crisis, because if you've been taking fuel of 20,000, 50,000, now you're like, oh, I might not find it tomorrow.
So you buy 150?
Let me just fill my tank. 250, 300 for the bigger cars. 150 for the smaller cars, to fill the tank and at least know that you can go for another 10 days also without branching somewhere. Now the reserves, like I've said, beginning about Feb, we should expect the stocks to build up in the storage tanks, including the ginger one. Ginger, the government one, we had the company, Unok went to Parliament last week or the other week and said we need some resources to buy the fuel, to fill the tanks. 30 million liters is not cheap. You need a bit of money. I had some MPs promising UNOC. UNOC has is in partnership with One Petroleum. They do some sort of joint venture. So they might either get government money to fill the tanks, or they might get a bit of fuel through the joint venture. But I think we got the memo that we need to have stocks, reliable stocks in our tanks, and they will be there. I trust that they will be there so soon.
Okay, we'll take a break, and when we come back from the break, we'll continue, of course, with the conversation, talk about the fuel crisis in this country, and with me in studios is the spokesperson of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, Mr. Solomon Muita, to help us understand where we are and what needs to be done going forward with what we are actually enduring in this country in as far as fuel is concerned. We'll take a break and return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra. Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
Tulantende ku program obulamu bwo.
Was brought to you by
Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Raising Voices.
I feel happy when my father spends time with me. I hope all fathers will like my father. I want my father to reach out to all fathers. He knows how important it is to be a good father. I promise to help my father inspire other fathers to change.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising Voices.
Enjoy convenience today with Airtel Money School Pay, FlexiPay, or Bridge Schools. To pay school fees using FlexiPay, dial *185#. Select option 6 School Fees. Select option 3 FlexiPay. Enter the school code. Enter the student number. Enter the amount. Enter the PIN number to complete payment. Pay school fees conveniently using Airtel Money. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
All eyes are on Africa. All eyes are on Cameroon. All eyes are on UBC. The drama, the heartbreak, the suspense, tears, joy and celebrations in the biggest sporting event on the continent. In one place, UBC. Call your public broadcaster today and grow your business with us. 0752 265 827 and 0776 611 540. UBC, inspiring Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, a very good morning. Welcome back from the break. We continue the conversation. I talk about the fuel crisis in this country. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka on GMU Extra with Mr. Solomon Muita, the spokesperson of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in this country. Welcome back from the break, Mr. Muita. Let's talk about the status of our FID, the defined investment decisions in oil production, because we have talked about oil in our oil city. We're building an oil airport. We've built oil roads. We have an oil city, and Ugandans think in this crisis we should actually be tapping from our own oil that we have in this country.
Yeah, thank you. We are looking towards the announcement of the final investment decision by Total Energies and CNOC and probably UNOC. Our own. This February, the three, we call them joint partner joint venture partners. They are going to announce before the president of the country, if all goes well, at the beginning of Feb, we should get the announcement how much money are they going to put in this market to get the oil out of the ground, because we are 2025, we want to be rolling. So we anticipate that it will be about a total of 15 billion US dollars is what we should be invested.
The investment should be.
Yeah, that's the investment we expect. But it has to be confirmed by the companies. Each one of them, how much are they going to invest towards the construction of the central processing facilities. Total is operating the Tilenga project. It's a very big project which will be giving us 190,000 barrels
daily.
Plus Sinok is operating Kingfisher, which is going to be giving us 40,000 barrels per day. So how much are they putting in to complete the construction of the central processing facilities? There's a lot of pipeline work between the central processing facilities and the
refinery.
Yeah, the point where the refinery is going to be the pipeline, the major pipeline going to Tanga in Tanzania is going to be, how much are they going to put in the pipeline? The pipeline is still a joint venture between 4 players. Those two, Total, Sinok, then Uganda through UNOC, and then Tanzania. Tanzania also has shares. Uganda and Tanzania have 15% shares each. Sinok has 8 shares and Total has 62. It is the biggest investor in that. So it's going to be a big announcement, and it's what we are waiting for to get everything rolling. Over the years, the exploration activities took place for the projects that we already licensed. But more exploration is going on in Moroto areas, Moroto Kadam areas. We have discovered oil in those parts. Although exploration is not yet complete, it is still at 70%. But there is oil in that place, and we are looking to complete and establish how much is it. Yeah, our engineers are saying it could be more than what is even in the Albertine region. There is also still oil down in the Albertine, which we've not. So after that exploration, we are coming back to do more exploration. So in the Albertine. So as we do production, we will continue exploring to see how much, Uganda is rich. Uganda is a rich country in terms of minerals. So after the announcements, the ball should be rolling. The project affected persons along the pipeline routes, there are 2 major pipelines. The one going to Tanga, going through 10 districts. And there is another pipeline coming from Hoima to Mpiji. Yeah. The people affected by those, the corridors were already mapped. So those people are going to be paid. The payment should be starting, because the resources, after the announcement, FID announcement, then the companies will start putting in money. They will be awarding contracts to their suppliers, to their contractors. Work should really commence. So it is a good thing for Uganda, because even the Ugandan contractors, for whatever they can do, we know that some of the things are a bit specialized, and Ugandans probably may not have the capacity to engage in some of the activities, but where they are able to, they have capacity to supply this or to do this, they should be able to get some of these resources, and also the jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, so the airport construction is in advanced stages. Now we are moving towards the construction of the refinery. UNOC, I believe the funds are going to be availed to UNOC for the construction of the refinery, because the land was already purchased for the refinery, for the central processing facilities, and one for the storage tanks. That land was already purchased. So everything should be moving.
Okay, very important. Are we also looking elsewhere as an alternative to maybe investing in a green energy or so, stuff like that? Because still this comes back to you, that as we're grappling now with the fuel crisis, we have issues here and there of lots of things that are happening to us, energy issues because of climate change and quite a number of things. Are we looking elsewhere for alternatives in these things?
Yes, Jagenda, just last week, the minister was in Lolwe Islands commissioning a solar project, which is serving that community, a big one, a big solar project. And we have many of those, we call them mini grids. We launched some in November. In the north. In the north. We have quite a number in different places, especially places where there is no electricity, where the national grid doesn't reach. Those projects, we have a whole department in charge of renewable energy at the ministry, headed by a commissioner. And there are quite a number, we are training people in clean cooking, clean electricity, clean this and that. So we are moving aggressively in that area. We have another department in charge of nuclear energy. In November, we had a team from the International Atomic Energy Agency. They came here to assess the infrastructure, Uganda's infrastructure. There are districts where we've identified good reserves of uranium, and we are going to make nuclear projects there, starting with Buyende and Nakasongola. And we are looking at putting there big plants of power generating plants from nuclear, because we are using hydro. The big power plants we have are hydro powered, to generate
hydro.
Yeah. Now we want to put in place plants that use nuclear. Now the nuclear plants are actually supposed to be bigger than the hydro ones, because the biggest hydro plant we have, what we are going to have is Karuma, which will be commissioned about mid this year, which is going to be giving us 600 megawatts. But the nuclear plants are going to give us 2,000, one plant, 2,000 megawatts. We, as a country, since Owen-Falls Dam started, we've not even gotten
2,000.
All of them combined.
2,000. We
are still at 1,300. When Karuma comes, we will go to 1,900. There are a few other mini hydro projects that will push it to 2,000, probably by the end of the year. But when we go nuclear, we are going to have one plant giving us 2,000, and another we are targeting 2. So Uganda's electricity by about 2040 is going to take a bit of time and investment. The investment is a bit heavy. You probably need about $5 billion
to put all that in place.
Yeah, 5 to 6 billion to put up those plants. we need to look for an investor in that area. We need to look for the resources. And the team is working tirelessly to make sure that we don't lose time. So we want all the approvals. It's a rigorous process. The International Atomic Energy Agency has to monitor all the processes to make sure that nuclear is used productively, because nuclear, we all know that nuclear, if it's misused, it can be very dangerous. So they monitor all the processes to make sure that we get it for largely for power generation, but also for health. You know, we have a bit of nuclear in the hospitals and so on. So we are getting it, and we are going to utilize it for those purposes. But that's green energy, and we are really looking towards there aggressively as a country.
Okay. Whenever you talk about commissioning of these hydropower projects, we just did one to Isimba the other day, and of course the information that comes out to the people is we now have more energy. And what surprises many Ugandans is that even when we say, I beg your pardon, we have more energy, we have much energy, we have a lot of these power projects or dams coming on, but yet again, people do not have power with them in their houses or all the things too. For those who have it, still get it at very hefty. They get it very expensively. Now, in 2015, we gave a concession of 10 years, we granted a concession of 10 years to Umeme. And their concession, of course, is coming to an end. And just recently, not so long ago, government went to Parliament to ask for over 250 billion shillings to buy out Umeme. And you were tasked as a ministry to assess the performance and see what Umeme has actually been doing. Let's get to the status of that also, because we need to know why Ugandans have all these power projects, whatever they are, and they either have to get the power very expensively or not even have it at all.
Yes. Getting power, generating power, for starters, is not cheap. Like I've told you, you need about 2 billion, like Karuma, 2 to 3 billion to put it up. You need almost slightly more to put up a bigger plant. It is not cheap to put up these projects. It's also quite expensive to evacuate the power. You can put up the dam, but you also have to evacuate it to take it where you want it to go. Moving the power from the dams to the substations and then distributing them is quite expensive, and that has kept the cost of power a bit high. But as a government, we have two kinds of interests. One, we want to take the power to the people. We want more Ugandans to have access to the power, to get connected to the power. And it's not going to come cheaply. That's why we are even working with partners. We have our development partners coming in, the EU, the what, you know, to put in money to support our efforts to take the power to the people. But also, we are looking towards taking the power to the people. The people, when they are connected to the power, they should be able to afford it. It's the reason you're talking about the Umeme concession and so on. There was a probe, and the reason for the probe was because someone said, why is our power so expensive? So we are looking at different options of making the power affordable. So that's why someone was looking into that. And we've been thinking as government, within government, and we get proposals here and there. And there are alternatives that we can get. It's a discussion ongoing, but the whole point is to take the power to the people and to make it affordable. Recently, the minister and the Electricity Regulatory Authority announced that they introduced a cooking tariff. Because we are talking clean energy, we want people to stop using firewood, to stop using charcoal. we have electricity. We have a lot of electricity. We generate right now approximately 1,300 megawatts. But at peak in Uganda, when everyone is using, we only consume 700 megawatts.
Of the 1,300?
Yeah, so even the power we have to look for other customers. That's why you hear that some power is going to Rwanda, to Kenya, to
yes,
Congo.
Exactly.
Yeah, and in future we'll have to find more customers out of the country, because as we also get our own people to connect to the power, while we have it, because when these investors come, they will say, I'm going to generate, like Karuma, I'm going to generate 600. I'll give you 600. So I don't want to generate my 600, and you tell me that, sorry, we can't use all of it. Then he's going to bill you. That's why that is what causes the tariff to go up. Because the person has invested their money, they need to get it out.
They need to get their
so
profits
if
back.
you don't find customers for them, then someone somewhere is losing money. So either you government is going to lose the money because you have to pay for the power. You know, we made an agreement, I'm generating the power, it has to be consumed. So if your connections in the country can't consume the power, someone else has to consume the power. Otherwise, you need to pay me for the power, even if you're not using it. So it's a bit, if we get more customers, we can get money. Probably it can cause the lowering of the tariff for the Ugandan. If we get alternatives that can give us the power a little cheaper, because if we have a lot of power, then there is no reason for the tariff to be high. Okay. So that's the discussion with about Umeme also. Probably there were some recommendations. Some people said we could look at an alternative.
Okay. And what's the latest now of the Umeme buyout?
It is a discussion ongoing. Okay. It's not concluded. We know that their concession ends in 2025, and there are discussions within government. Some voices are saying, let's buy out Umeme, and they get out. We don't renew, and we look at the alternatives. So the alternatives, alternative proposals will be coming in, but we also need to critically look at Umeme. Has anything changed? Has anything improved? Probably the issues that were identified at the time of the probe have been fixed. Probably Umeme will come back with a better proposal, but we are looking towards how do we make the power cheaper?
For the people?
For the people. Okay. So Umeme, if they are probably looking at staying in the market, they might come with a proposal, another proposal.
Finally, we will talk about rationalization of government departments and agencies. That, of course, we've seen. And, of course, these recommendations of we need to, again, bring back these many that were actually thrown here and see how to get back to maybe parent ministries. When you get to the old UEB, we got EDCL, we got the ETCL, we got the EGCL, we got all these coming from one. And, of course, one is supposed to transmit, the other is supposed to distribute, the other is supposed to generate, the other is supposed to do all the things. And maybe people think that could have been one of the problems. Would it be a good idea if we came back and brought transmission, distribution, generation and everything and together into one, it may not be UEB, but into one sort of UEB, quote unquote?
That discussion has been there. It is still happening. There were reasons, many reasons for fronted for the rationalization of government state agencies. It goes beyond the agencies under the Ministry of Energy. You've heard of UNRA, you've heard of others. But of course, my ministry has many of these agencies that are supposed to come back. Already we've got one of them back, the Rural Electrification Agency. It has come back. You know, the team is back. We are working together. Okay. the others are still out there. But yeah, that is the plan. If we get them back, it's also still at discussion stage.
Okay.
Are we able to get a good proposal to form one company, probably Uganda Electricity Company, to operate as a company under the ministry, having all these as departments? Is it going to be, because someone needs some ideas are coming through, probably it will be more organized with one CEO and heads of department in charge of generation, transmission, distribution, and so on. It is an alternative we are looking at. It is partly why you're hearing stories of buying out Umeme, because if you bought out Umeme and got this company, gave it the mandate to generate, transmit, and distribute. Yeah, probably. So it's a model we are still studying, and we shall get proposals. Umeme can still come back and say, I'll do
those for you.
I'll do all that. Having been in it for so many years, probably they may have that experience. But also, every time we have a chance to make people compete, you may get another bigger player somewhere from another country who may come and say, I'll do it and I'll make sure that the tariff drops to this. So,
very affordable.
So government has a chance to review, and it will make the best decision in the interest of the people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finally from you, what should the people take from you this morning about the fuel crisis?
The good news is that most places, most stations, the stations that were selling at 8,000, at 6,000, at 5,500, majority of the stations have come down to what the ministry desired, or the government desired, because my minister announced that don't sell beyond 5,000. And we've seen many of them have come down to below 5,000 or are selling at 5,000, which is still expensive actually, because we want the price to go back to what it were in November. Yeah, so we want them to go down to 4,500, at least as we monitor the international market. Because we know that beginning of February, we have a chance to probably negotiate for a better rate at the international market. So if we achieve that, but our players need to really flow with us and work in the interest of the people. You need the customer, much as the customer also needs the fuel. So we need to flow together.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Solomon Meita, the spokesperson of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, for having allowed to join us here on Good Morning Uganda today. Now, we'll stop our conversation and discussion here to just let the public know that, yes, the ministry and the government, of course, is doing their best to ensure that there is enough fuel for all of us, because that's the only way that we can continue managing. But tomorrow, on Good Morning Uganda Extra, we will be at Rubaga for the installation of the Archbishop of Kampala, Bishop Paul Semogerere. We'll be part of that event, and we just implore you to be a part of it, as we also get a new Archbishop of Kampala in Paul Semogerere. We love you, and we just keep it here for today. For God and my country, stay blessed. Until tomorrow, good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.